What is up? Welcome to the Pro Physique Code. This is the prep series. You're joined by just three of our people here today, me, Rachel, Lexie, and Evan. Kaylee is taking a break to take care of the fam. But we're excited to talk about a subject that a lot of us run into as coaches. And I'm sure anyone who listens, I know we have a lot of competitors listening who have gone through this before. If you've competed before, you've pretty much gone through this before, which is post-show weight gain, like unwanted post-show weight gain. So we're just going to talk through the highs and lows of the post-show period and what we see in terms of like our most successful athletes post-show and the ones that struggle a lot, and just like how to kind of navigate that post-show period and what the important things to focus on are. So, but first, how are you guys doing? Let's catch up a little bit.
Yeah, doing good. I was telling Evan, I'm kind of going, well, I think you heard, Rich. I'm kind of going crazy because there's this there's construction literally on all sides of my building right now, but I guess that's just kind of what you get when you live downtown, but it is nonstop buzzing all day. So, trying to keep my cool. I mean, of course I could go somewhere else and work, but when you film like the videos that we do for client check-ins, I don't really like to do those in like collaborative spaces because there's just, noise in the background.
Yeah, if I'm working from a coffee shop, I'm usually not doing a Loom video or voice memo. I might do like a short voice memo if I'm in like a quiet voice, like quiet place. But usually that's when I'm just like, sorry guys, you're getting an email today. So
Yeah, I love my apartment like lounge. It's on the rooftop. It's awesome, but a lot of people work in there, and I almost kind of feel bad when I'm not one person like talking. So got to be
Mhm.
respectful of other people. But other than that, doing great. How are you? How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm
Evan, you're
golden.
6 weeks out, right?
6 weeks. Yeah,
How are you
six
feeling?
weeks out. Feeling good. Went to a show this weekend and Danielle competed in that. She did well. It was fun. And I had the chance personally I posed for David and Tim Gardner and a few of the other judges. Just to make sure I was on the right track, and changes have been made and feedback was good. So
That's great.
yeah,
That's
feedback was
always good
really
when you
good.
get a chance to pose in front of some judges before you compete.
Yeah. Yeah. And so feedback was really good. And the show I'm doing is Tim's show. So obviously he's not judging it, but it's his show. He gave me really good feedback, a lot of helpful tips too, that'll really benefit me, especially when it comes like my back pose. Because my rear delts are kind of overpowering, which is interesting, which is cool because I've never really had anything on my back, part of my back, that was ever overpowering. So the fact to have anything that's overpowering right now makes me happy to some degree. Um, so it was good. It was a lot of fun. Feedback was good. So the way I'm kind of doing my diet is I push down hard for 5 days and then have 2 days of a refeed, then push down hard for 5 days and have 2 days of a refeed. And that's been working for me. My weight's been kind of holding steady, but every week the conditioning just gets considerably better by the end of the week.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, it
might
looks like you're going
start
to be
changing stuff up
ready
a little bit.
pretty like early, right?
Yeah. They guessed, like, by looking at me, Tim was very specific. He was like, I would lose about 3/4 of a pound a week for the next 4 weeks and then stop.
Nice.
So I'm pretty close
Yeah.
right now. So yeah, good. Feeling good. Feeling good. Trying to hold it all together at times. But because
And then Danielle's
coaching's busy,
competing
everything's
this weekend
busy.
as well.
Yeah, yeah. She's doing Battle of the Bodies this weekend. So we'll be
Okay,
going down
cool.
there on Friday. And yeah, so she's competing. I know we got a bunch of girls competing down there too from Pro
Uh,
Physique. So it'll
she's
be a fun weekend.
she's gonna love the stage pictures because I feel like that show. It's this is the only the third Battle of the Bodies, but that backdrop is gorgeous and like the lighting
Mhm.
is gorgeous. And yeah, I just remember that.
It's all pink, right? Or is it?
No, it's
It's
like
like beach.
purpley blue, beachy,
Oh, it's like a beach.
but
That's right.
it's
Mhm.
like
I was thinking of the Nashville Fit show.
yeah. So yeah, and I just remember because I did the Battle of the Bodies the first year, and it's like like the background, the backdrop of the stage, and the lighting in the stage pictures was just absolutely phenomenal.
It's the one LED background that I'm a fan of because it looks like you're kind of at the beach and it has like waves flowing at the bottom of it. It's like you're standing on
Not
the
like the
sand. It's
Olympia last
really
year.
cool. Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what's funny is the first year that show happened and I did it, I thought it was an all girls show, but I mean, I guess
Might as well be.
yeah, because I remember the first year it was on, there was like no guys. And so I literally remember being in my hotel room finishing up my hair, Paul calling me and he's like, get down here. Like they are lining up women because there were just no guys. And
They were
so
done.
it was like, but I think
Oh.
there are like, I think it's still a really small guy show, but there's maybe some, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
That's
still a
weird. I
very
thought it
small
was all
guy
women
show.
too.
Yeah, you think it is, but it's not. Actually, I think didn't Steven do this show last year?
Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah.
He did.
Cool. Well, how are you, Rachel?
I'm good. I woke up yesterday like a little bit sick feeling, and so I was just like super tired, but honestly, I drank a lot of water and I use this like cold care stuff that I've been using for like 10 years. That's like it's in a little dropper bottle and I get it at Whole Foods and it's called Umqua. And I take that like 3 times a day. It's like a little like dropper. And as soon as I start feeling kind of like sickness or whatever, and like the tight feeling in my throat is totally gone. And now I'm just like a little bit sniffly and I feel much better. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm a big
Whatever
fan. But
works.
yeah, everything is good. Training is good. My definitely like I'm in that place in my I've been in off season or whatever for like over a year and a half now, and it feels like I'm at that point where I'm starting to get to the time where like I'm not starting prep anytime soon, but we've talked about starting prep next year. And so I've been kind of in my head lately of just like, some days I feel really good and I'm like, damn, I look fucking good. I'm going to do really well next year. And then some days, like the other day, I took a video of myself like posing or whatever. And I'm like, fuck, I look so small. And so I'm just like, I
Funny
had like a
how
mini breakdown of like being small. I'm like, I'm not going to compete next year.
oh
So
my
it's just kind of
God.
like, bodybuilding mind games. But overall, I'm feeling really good. Training's going well, injury free, and my house is doing well. I'm like getting it together. I painted a bunch this over the weekend. I painted my living room. Me and my boyfriend painted my living room accent wall black. And so now it's just like it feels really cozy and just like chill. It used to be like all the gray that's behind me, this like kind of very light blue gray, and the whole house is painted like that. And it's nice, but it's like needs some personality. So painted it black, and then I painted some accents black in the kitchen too. So yeah, it's nice to start feeling like a home.
Love it.
But now I need some plants. Like I want to fill the
Plants.
living room with some cool plants because I have the plant that I have right here in my office, and I've had that for 2 years and I haven't killed it. So now I feel like I'm ready for more plants.
Oh, more power to you. Yeah, I'm not a plant gal, but I have utmost respect for people with that green thumb. I
I'm
mean,
gonna do it. I've heard that it's really good for the air, like that the plants purify your air. And so I really want to
That's the
do
rumor.
that and just like add that little touch. But yeah, we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated. But yeah,
yeah,
that's how life is.
cool beans. Well, I figured first and foremost, like before I forget to mention, like I know we say this every episode, or I think at least I try to. If you guys have any specific prep related topics you want to hear in future episodes, please DM one of us so I can add it to our list, because I came up with this topic today just because I feel like it kind of goes along with like questions I get from people, or I think it's just it's
Plus,
nice.
you're in this season
Yeah,
too.
oh
You're in the
yeah,
post
yeah,
show.
exactly. Yeah.
Kind
Yeah,
of on your mind.
true, yeah. And I know Maria Nemeth and I did a live together a few weeks ago about post show, and specifically we got some questions about just like how much weight should you gain post show, which is going to be very different for everybody. But I also think it's important to talk about how important those first, couple weeks post show are. And when I say post show, meaning like you're wrapping up your season, you've finished, competing, and you're going into a strategic building phase improvement season. Because I think that those first couple weeks can be, I mean, some people like overdo it with the food, and then it's like, oh crap, I'm up or not 2 pounds, 10 pounds in a week or two, and I want to diet again. Like I hear that sometimes, and I think competitors don't realize. I know, Evan, you're probably, I mean, we've all heard it, right? But it's hard
Yeah,
because
you do a show, you diet for 6 months, and then oops, you gain like 10, 20 pounds. You're uncomfortable, you feel bad, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to diet.
Yeah.
Like, you're not allowed to go back into a fat loss phase. You're going to fuck up your metabolism even more. And that fat loss phase is not going to work because your body is not primed for a fat loss phase. Think about all the work you do before a prep to prepare for the prep. If you have a good coach, that is, or if you do things right, like, you're not going to have a good time in that post prep fat loss phase. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. I think that if we can educate competitors, especially new competitors, because I think most of the time seasoned competitors are aware of that. But a lot of new competitors don't realize that, like, you know, they have a little fun that first week or two post show, or, you know, they schedule a vacation and it's a, you know, all inclusive resort and they eat their little heart out. And then, you know, they come back and it's like,
Eat their
holy
little heart
crap,
out.
I'm
Eat their little heart out. That should be the comment. That should be the title.
eat your little heart
Eat
out.
your little heart out post show.
But like, you know, and then they come home and it's like, crap, I'm up 10, 15 pounds in 2 weeks. And I know that may sound kind of crazy, but it happens. It's a lot of water weight, of course, but it happens. And then, you know, that moment of panic. And then it's a lot of people are like, oh, I want to diet again. Right. But the like what Rachel said, you can't always just diet. Like, your metabolism is not in a place for you to just diet again and to be effective. Like, you've gained that weight, you're going to probably lose a little bit of it. That's the water weight, but it's not all going to just come off. Like, it didn't prep. Like, your metabolism is not in the spot where it's going to be able to do that. So I think it's really important to educate competitors, especially first time competitors, that this is something that happens. And one of my biggest recommendations to kind of combat this, besides the obvious of like, have a good strategic post show plan, is don't schedule a fun trip right after your show. I mean, you can, but you're going to have to realize you can't go crazy with the food while you're there. And also, don't hoard post show treats, because if you hoard a ton of post show treats and then, you know, maybe you enjoy a little bit of them the day after your show and they're still in your fridge or pantry, whatever it is, they're going to just like haunt your mind the next week or two. And it's going to be a lot easier to just overindulge. So do not hoard the post show treats. Hoard maybe a little bit to just have the next day, but that's it.
Evan's thinking about the 100 cookies in his freezer right now.
That's probably an understatement.
I saw that. I talked to Danielle the other day. She's like, I just bought 100 cookies. I don't know what number it was.
Did you?
Yes, I saw that video. I was like, damn.
You are so good, because for me, I can.
There's more coming.
Oh, really?
Of course there is.
Stay away from
She said she would send me some. You need to make sure she does.
I think she took half of them already and dropped them off at MI40 for people.
Oh my God. She's so kind.
She's like, I don't even know why I ordered this.
See, I can have.
That's a big impulse buy. Those cookies are like $5 a piece.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
So you literally have like 100 in your fridge right now?
It's impressive.
Wow. See, I can stay away from that stuff when I'm in prep, no problem.
They're frozen though, so we're good.
But when it's like
but have you ever had a frozen cookie? Because those are pretty good too.
I bet they're delicious.
Like, you get a good knife and you cut like a piece off of it. And
and
like,
there's also these things
giving
called
the secrets away. Yeah, you get a good knife, cut a piece off of the frozen cookie. It's so good. Or just microwave that little piece. Oh my God.
See, my issue is I can't have a piece. I have to have like 7 of them. Like
7 for
cookies.
Sure. I used to be that way too. And like, I mean, I don't know. This kind of goes into our topic of like, as a competitor, it's important to learn from all of your experiences. So my very first show back in 2015, I don't even remember what I did after the show, but like, I ate a lot. I definitely like overindulged, like post show, like having dinner and stuff like that. And then the week post, I just like ate little snacks here and there and like more and more snacks. And then I would have like, you know, I would go out to eat and I would have way more than I needed. You know, I would have half a pizza or like more than half a pizza. I would have like just a lot for my small body. And I basically made it into this thing like I needed that. And I did that throughout the next couple preps, especially after I turned pro in 2017. I kind of like, I really wanted to nail my reverse, but then I would have moments of weakness where I would, you know, overindulge in something. I would snack. I would kind of like mindlessly eat. That would be what would happen. I would be on my plan and then something would happen. I would just kind of mindlessly eat, or I would have one thing that I planned and then eat a lot of it. And I remember having a hard time with it, but then people like close friends and whatever would tell me like, yeah, but you just got your pro card. Like you deserve it. You
You
need the
deserve it.
food. You need, and you hear a lot of that feedback, and a lot of competitors, no matter who they are, they hear like, you just prepped for so long. Like you need that food, like just live a little, or like they think that you deserve it and they make food into something you have to deserve or earn or whatever. And that's just, it's such an unhealthy relationship with food that you're building by listening to that and accepting that. And so what I try to like instill in my clients and like people I talk to from the beginning of like, before we even start prep and then throughout prep and after prep is talking about like food is not something you earn ever. Food is something that we want to use as fuel. Yes, we want to enjoy it. You should be able to enjoy it, but you shouldn't have to earn it with extra cardio or, eat the food and then do the extra cardio so that you can, feel like you deserve it more or something like that. Because you got a pro card or because you want to show, you don't earn more food. You deserve food no matter what, because you're a human and you need fuel. You need to fuel your body. But you shouldn't think that like, oh, I need this food because it's going to make me feel good, or I need this food because I just won this show or something like that, or I worked so hard over the last 6 months, so I earned this cheat meal or whatever. It's not a good cycle to get into because
it's a toxic thought process.
Exactly. It's a toxic thought process that's going to just continue to get worse and make you have little to no control over your actions in terms of like how you eat and what you eat. You want control over your actions. You want willpower. And a lot of times when we give ourselves the out or the excuse like, oh, I deserve this because of X, Y, or Z, then we just like, we continue that cycle and we don't realize what it's doing to our heads. We don't realize that it's like, it's actually causing more harm than good.
I had a client it came in a little bit flat, and between prejudging and finals, I'm like, whatever, it's done. I was like, go get like a burger and fry because you're flat, and got it. And this client said, I feel like I don't deserve this. And I'm like, hold up, you think this is a reward or a treat? No, you need it.
Yeah.
Like this is not a reward. Like you need it. This is what's needed right now. But it's like that thought process.
I have a lot of athletes think that about refeeds. They're like, I'm not down in weight enough. I don't deserve a refeed. I'm not giving you a refeed as a treat. I'm giving it to you because it's strategy. I need to see how your body reacts to carbs. I need to see how your body reacts to increased food or a free cheat meal or something like that. Like it's all part of the process. And sometimes we give a refeed and it doesn't work how we want it to. I have a client going through prep right now. Yeah. But you have to test it to find out, I love when a client gets a refeed and they drop weight or they get leaner or they get tighter. Sometimes if they're not lean enough, or if they're just like their carb sensitivity isn't where it should be for that level of prep, then we find out through giving them more carbs and seeing, okay, they spilled over, they gained weight. Let's push a little longer and try to see, get them leaner so they can be more sensitive to the carbs.
Because eventually that will happen. Eventually that will happen. And what I think
and for some people, it happens earlier on in prep and like at different levels of leanness than others.
And I think people think like if you've done this for a while, you just don't have cravings. And after shows, you just are like ironclad and none of this stuff ever goes through your mind. That's a bunch of bullshit. All right. Like everyone wants things. The reason that, like I said before, the reason I don't keep stuff around is because I know myself. And I don't enjoy having like one cookie. I enjoy eating a lot of cookies. That's how I enjoy it. So I just don't eat it. Because if I have it here, I'm going to eat it. So
because it's important to you to have a certain goal and to look a certain way and to feel a certain way.
Yeah. And trust me, because when I do that though, I feel terrible the next day when I do it. Like I don't feel good. My digestion's wrecked. This is not a good situation. Right. So I think that's part of it. And I think another thing that people see is, I'll be honest, like after I get done with a show, if I want to, I can get away with a lot. I can get away with a whole lot. But I'm also,
and explain getting away with it. Explain that for people.
I can eat in a surplus for an extended period of time and not gain a ton of body fat. But the reason for that is because I am, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, I'm far more conditioned than the vast majority of people that compete. So when you're
And you have a
conditioned,
lot of muscle density. That's another
yes,
part of it. Is like,
when you,
people talk shit about men's physique, but like you do have a lot of muscle. And so
yeah,
like you're a big person. And
yeah,
so someone like you with a lot of muscle maturity and density, like and who is very conditioned and who has a really high metabolism, they're going to get away with more food in excess for longer periods of time than someone like, say, Lexie, who's like a smaller
mm-hmm.
person, a bikini competitor. It's like, it's just going to be like Lexie eating the same amount that as you is going to be completely
Oh
different,
yeah.
right?
And I don't have to be as on the ball with some stuff at certain times than other people do. But earlier on, you better believe I had to be, or else I'd
Yeah,
blown
and the
30
same thing for
pounds.
me. Yeah, like I've noticed that in this off season, like I am so much less like sensitive to food than I was like in past off seasons and in past like even like this my post show period that for like my last show at the end of 2021. Even that, like, yes, I had a better relationship with food, so I didn't want as much food, and I didn't like, and I had a better like head on my shoulders in terms of like, what do I need to do for this reverse and how do I need to do it? But also just like having more muscle and being conditioned and like also just knowing the foods that aren't going to fuck you up, like your stomach, digestion wise,
Mm-hmm.
like that plays a huge role as well.
It's yeah, it's definitely something, not like completely fresh post show, but I would say like after the Tampa Pro, I didn't go crazy by any means. I mean, it got over so late. I just had some like protein bars, like they had some treats backstage, like had like some snacky stuff, right? But and it tastes great in the moment, but it's just like that's it. It tastes good in the moment and then it doesn't digest well, at least for me. Cause I mean, I think a lot of times too, where what screws a lot of competitors over post show is that they eat a lot of foods that they haven't had in X amount of months and it doesn't sit well with their digestion, or they consume a lot of sugar. And not that sugar is inherently bad, but it's like if you have not had sugar or you haven't had those foods for 6+ months and you have them in excess when you're so lean and when your digestion is a little sensitive, that is what screws a lot of people over, because then it's not only like, oh wow, I overate, but it's I overate and I feel like absolute garbage too. Your digestion slows, you
Well, it's
feel
inflammatory too. That's the thing that people don't think about as much is like, it's not that sugar is bad for you. It's that like you're eating so much of it and it's in the form of highly palatable foods. That means that like you're going to eat that one cookie and it's not going to fill you up because it's so palatable. It's so addicting
it is.
in
And
terms of it because it's so much sugar and salt and butter and fat. Like it's all the things that our bodies like, it doesn't actually fill us up. It doesn't satiate us like a bowl of oatmeal does, but
mm,
like it's going, so we're going to want more because we're like, oh,
Calorie
I just
dense.
have
Yeah.
to have more.
do and
What?
it's very
It's just calorie
interesting.
dense. It doesn't take, those is the way I look at it. Things that are not that heavy, that don't take up a lot of space, that are super calorie dense, it's not going to fill you up.
Nope.
It's not going to happen. That's why, like,
Yeah.
a big salad will fill you up that's not calorie dense
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
more than
Oh
one
yeah.
cookie would. But
I
that big salad is about a quarter of the calories that a cookie is in most cases.
yeah,
And, well, if it's a decent salad, at
to
least.
I listened to a podcast that my client shared with me about like 2 weeks ago about sugar, like the palatable foods and what it actually does for like our dopamine response. And
Mm-hmm.
it truly is like it is addicting, and it's very interesting to hear kind of the science behind when you consume those hyper palatable foods or those sugary foods. The reason, like you said, Evan, you can't just have a piece of it; you have to have like a lot of it, and that's the case for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. There's very few people that can just have a little bite of something and be satisfied, and it's because I mean, I don't know the exact specifics. I can't remember, but I know that it elicits dopamine in your brain, and then you just want more and more to feed that dopamine,
You're
right?
always chasing that high, just like if you're
Exactly.
taking drugs, like you're
Mm-hmm.
chasing the high of the dopamine that you get from the foods. There's a
Mhm.
podcast on that Huberman put out about that specifically and the highly palatable foods. And I've sent it to a number of clients because he actually shared a lot of like tips and just like tools that you can use in terms of like how to kind of help your brain like rewire your brain a little bit when it comes to more palatable foods and like cravings and stuff like that. And like one thing that I know has helped me in the past, but like back when I listened to it and it's helped some other clients, is like if you're when you eating something with if you're going to eat something like that's sugary or maybe more palatable, eat something with it that is, I think it was like something that's low on the glycemic index, because of just how your brain like connects like or responds to those foods together. If you're doing that, you're less likely to have more of that higher palatable food. And it's partially because like you're filling yourself up more. So like if you have, I usually tell people like something like oatmeal is, so you can make it really good and you can make it more palatable by adding protein powder, maybe some chocolate chips or berries or something like that. You can make it palatable, but it's also going to fill you up a lot more. So I always recommend like do something like that, make it really good, but then you're done. You're done with the bowl of oatmeal. You made it. You don't have all of the stuff out. It's not like a box of cookies where you're going to grab a cookie and you're like, well, I might as well get one more. Like you made the bowl of oatmeal and it's done. It's there. Or like some yogurt and granola, similar thing. It's like you can have food that's good post show and you can fit it into your macros or your meal plan, and you can make it so it's going to be better for you and you're not going to continue craving those foods.
Yeah, I think I kind of elaborated or I started to kind of elaborate towards this at the beginning, but I think for me personally, one of the things I've learned is I have pretty good control over like my intake post show for the most part. However, one thing I have learned about myself is I'm not like Evan. I can't have a full freezer of cookies because what happens is post show, if I know I have all of that in my freezer and I know that's all there, it's kind of, it consumes my brain. And then it's like that back and forth all day between like, oh, I really want that, but I know I shouldn't. And then it's just like it consumes my brain. So like post show this time, I know there were a few things that I just like I had to throw out or give away because I just didn't want it in my house. I didn't want to have to deal with that mental distraction all day of like, oh, I really want that, but I know I shouldn't have it. Like because that will consume me, and I know that that's the same case for some other competitors out there. So that's why I always say, this isn't the case for everybody, but for me personally, it helps to have a couple of post show treats maybe saved, but not anything that's gonna last me for months afterwards. Like just have a few things
You
that I
don't
can
have to
have the day
stockpile
after.
stuff. That's the thing. It's like those
Yeah.
cookies that you order, and this is not a dig on you and Danielle at all, but like
I
the
didn't
cookies
order
that you
any
can
of
order. Yeah. You the cookies you order, you can order them now or you can order them 6 months from now. They're going to be
Mhm.
the same fucking cookie. I don't care
Yep.
how limited edition that cookie is. You can order it later. And if
Mm.
it's limited edition, guess what? It's not that big a deal. If there's a springtime cookie and you're not ordering until the winter, it's okay. Like you're not missing out on that much. It's a cookie.
So
So I
this
try to
is
like make things more like simple for people when I'm talking through like stuff like this with clients, is like the food will always be there. So if you are someone like Lexie, you like really can't have it in your house, don't stockpile it, because if you know yourself well enough to know that you're going to have that thought too of like, oh my God, it's there, I might as well have a little bit of it. Oh, I'm going to have all of it, that kind of thing. Then like know yourself and respect yourself and those boundaries that you have for yourself. Don't think that you're going to be the exception to the rule of yourself by just like, oh, I'm going to have it anyway and test myself. Like you might not be ready for that kind of test, and that's okay. So I always recommend people like start with less so you can just like maybe build up from there. And also like it's important for all of this stuff to think about, how do you want your first 6 weeks post show to go? I tell people I want it to be just like prep. I want the first 6 weeks of your off season to be thought of like prep. Yes, you can be a little looser with macros if you really want to, but the tighter you are with it and the more closely you stick to your plan, whether it's macros, your meal plan, the closer you stick to just your habits that you had in prep, like getting up early, drinking lots of water, taking all your health supplements, like doing some cardio, the more you stick to that stuff and those routines, the less you're going to be thinking of like, oh, I'm done with my show, I might as well have this cookie, or I might as well go out every night or for lunch or for, that's another thing that happens is a lot of people just, okay, the floodgates open
They change
of
everything.
people knowing that you're done with your show and your family wanting to make you treats. Like, make sure that when you're in prep, you're also talking to those people and you're making sure they know that your prep lifestyle isn't a phase. It's just your lifestyle. Unless you're just going to quit bodybuilding altogether, which I don't recommend, like quitting the entire lifestyle, even if you're not going to compete again, like just continue that lifestyle for a little bit longer so you can mitigate some of the unwanted weight gain and unwanted like mental struggles of post show that comes with weight gain.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have those boundaries and be very upfront with your friends, your family, like especially if it's your first prep, because I hear that a lot. I hear from clients like, "Oh, my coworkers or my family or my friends, they want to, take me out and treat me after my prep," and I know that that stems from a good place. It just stems from them not understanding that it's not like a light switch. It's not like you're going to prep and then boom, instantaneously go back to quote unquote normal, whatever that is. So I think, as a competitor, you have to have those boundaries and be upfront with those people because a lot of times they just don't understand. It doesn't come from any like a bad spot. They just don't understand that it's not a matter of you competing and then being able to go back to complete normalcy. Like Rachel said, I oftentimes say treat the 6 to 8 weeks post show as prep. Yes, you're going to slowly regain more food. You're going to slowly start to regain that weight that you lost. Your cardio is going to come down, but it's important to think about those first 6 to 8 weeks as like they should be as regimented as prep if you want to have a successful post show where you're not spiking up an insane amount on the scale and accumulating just a ton of unnecessary body fat.
I
And
could
guess
go
what?
off on.
Like those, if you stick to that time period, like if you stick to your protocols in that 6 to 8 weeks really well, you're going to have a much better like caloric range at the end of that. Like we're going to be able to reverse you quicker, and reverse diet meaning like bring your calories up and cardio down most likely. We're going to do that a lot quicker and higher most likely for people who stick to it more. If you're constantly all over the place, then we can't bring food up necessarily unless we just really, really have to, because you can't stop yourself. Then we might as well bring up food. That's the
Yeah.
other like kind of part of it.
Yeah.
But if the more consistent you are, the faster we can move forward, because the body likes consistency. And if we're super consistent for like 2 weeks at a time and you're responding really well, you're looking really good, you're feeling good, yes, you're hungry, but like everything is good, then we can raise food and get you feeling better. And then that just can happen more succinctly, and it can happen more quickly.
Yeah, I feel like the people that you hear about who can eat so much post show, for the most part, it's not that they're like unicorns or that they're special. It's just that I mean, sometimes that can be the case, but most of the time it's just because, they're following their protocol. There's a lot of times where I wouldn't say this happens a lot like with my own clients, but I've had this happen a couple of times where it's just like post show, the client is not sticking to their macros, they're overeating, they're not hitting their macros. So as a coach, I can't raise the floor of their macros, so they have to stick with a lower kind of
Especially if they tell you their goal is to not gain a bunch of body fat, because most people have that goal,
exactly.
but then they can't stop themselves from
Yeah.
eating.
So the people that you hear about being able to eat so much, a month post show, like I said, it's not usually that they're just a unicorn, but it's that they actually treated their post show phase well and they followed their macros and they didn't go, away and just, have a free for all with food.
Yeah, they took their job seriously, and it's like, no, it's not a job, but if you can treat it like a job, you're gonna have a much better time. If you can treat like hitting your meals, going to the gym, getting your cardio in, if you can treat it like it's a non-negotiable, then that's going to make it a lot easier to just stick to it, because it's like you take it seriously. And especially if you're a serious competitor and you have a goal of like, okay, I'm stepping off stage. I know I need to grow. I know I need to get, bigger. I know I need to be leaner next time. Then you need to take all of the off season seriously, especially the first couple months of that off season. And if you don't, then you don't take your goals seriously. I'm sorry.
The
Or you need to do some more work on yourself to know why you can't take it seriously. Maybe it's that the goal isn't right for you. Maybe it's that you have other inner work to do on yourself to make sure that you can follow a plan. But most of the time, it's just that people have a hard time thinking that like my life is like has to be a certain way. They need a lifestyle to end in order to be happy, and that's not how bodybuilding is. The most successful people live the lifestyle year round, no matter what, in prep, off prep, whatever. And those people are usually happier, even though it's really monotonous, but that's because they have more control over their bodies. They have more control over how they look and how they feel and all of that. If I am, whatever phase I'm in, I think about the decision like, all right, I could have this and that's going to make me feel and or look a certain way that I don't want to look. So I'm not going to have it, or I'm going to have a lot less of it. And that's kind of how I treat things like free meals or, an extra snack or things like that, is like, how do I want it to affect me? If I don't want it to affect me, then I guess I don't want to do it. Or maybe like I'm okay with it affecting me in a negative way, but I have to live with the consequences. And that has helped me throughout my seasons, especially this off season, which is like the longest one I've ever taken, is just always thinking about like, what are my goals? What do I really want? Because, and people might think that it's silly to think of like a goal like years from now when it comes like just down to like one meal. But if you do that with everything, then you're much more likely to reach those goals. You can't just assume that you can be the exception to the rule. Like, yeah, this one won't count, or this one, it's not that bad. Like, because if you do that, you're going to do that over and over again. You're going to continue to say like, oh, it's just one meal out, or it's just one drink, or it's just this. Then, but if you're doing that multiple times a week, it adds up so much.
Yeah, you start to justify it more. Like, it's not that, okay, one meal, like in the peak of your off season, if it's a little off, it's not that it's the end of the world. However, what happens is you start to justify that once, and then you do it more and more and more, and then it builds. And then that's when it becomes a real big issue, is when that behavioral pattern just builds. And the same concept for, I have this conversation all the time with clients about, I call them BLTs, bites, licks, and tastes, like all those little things that, little bites here and there that go untracked. It's very easy for some people to fall into that habit, especially when there's no show date on the horizon, you're middle of your building phase. And it's not that one tiny little bite of whatever it is going to absolutely kill your progress. But once you do that once, you start doing it more, and then it just builds, and then it becomes a really hard habit to break. So that's why I think we're so, so gung ho on not making that a habit. That way it doesn't become a really bad habit to break long term. I think another area that a lot of people struggle with post show, when it comes to staying on track, is just the fact that like there's no lingering show date anymore. And I truthfully think, and I think you guys will probably agree with me, and this is just the tough love side of it, I don't think you should need a show date to stay regimen. And if you do, consider if this is the lifestyle for you, because you should live this lifestyle because you love it, and not just because you have a lingering show date that you're working towards. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. And like I have shows that I would like to do next year, but I know that I might not do them. I might spend another year in off season, who knows? But like that doesn't make me say like, oh, I can rest a little bit, I can chill and like not work as hard, or I can, miss some meals. Like, no, like if you're treating your off season, however long it is, like you have tons of time, and so you have all this time to just kind of fuck off and not work as hard because, oh, I have time, then you don't have time. The people that act like all the time in the world still isn't enough, those are usually the people that are more successful and who are going to make more progress in the time they have. There's never enough time. But the people that think like, oh yeah, I have time, it's fine, like those people usually end up having to like rush and kind of like scramble at the end because they're like, fuck, I didn't make enough gains, or I didn't get lean enough, or I didn't do enough of this or that.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, because I think this will be a question that a lot of our listeners want to hear the answer to. I know that there's not going to be a specific answer, but I'm curious if you guys had to kind of put a number or a rate to it. What do you guys typically deem as like a normal healthy amount of weight to gain the first couple of weeks post show? And I know it's gonna be
Impossible to
great.
answer.
What?
Impossible to answer. Depends. I mean,
I
here's the
know.
thing: is most people that compete aren't in good enough shape to begin with. I hate to say it, it's the truth.
Yeah, for
Most
sure.
people are not conditioned. They get on stage, and then they're like, "I want to reverse." I'm like, "Well, you still really kind of aren't lean enough yet." So with that, you got to monitor the reverse more. So because if weight gain gets up too high, then the next prep is going to be miserable too, because however long it wasn't enough to get the body fat off. So you're going to get back up to the same weight again and try to get off again. It's just a perpetual cycle of never being in shape.
Mm-hmm.
So
Especially
you
if you
have
don't
to
take
be
long
in
enough in
shape
that off season.
first. You have to be in shape first. And once you get in shape the first time, then you can get back to that shape. But you have to get to that shape first, especially when it comes to females in the sport that have that real stubborn body fat that's been there their whole life. Okay. That's been there their
That's a good
whole
point.
life. You know how hard that is to get rid of? How many girls really struggle to get that glute ham tie-in, and they never get it because when they get right on the border of it, and then after that, I deserve all this post show. And then their weight goes back up to where it was, and then they never end up getting it. It's not that they can't, it's just they've never got to that point, and they haven't allowed
And all
themselves.
honestly, like the mental anguish that can come from that cycle, and
It's
like how
psychological.
hard it is. It's so hard to then focus enough to do what you need to do in your off season. I see that a lot, is like people don't, they kind of miss the mark in their prep. They don't get to where they wanted to be. And then, because they're so disappointed, then they fall off in their reverse, or they don't treat the reverses seriously, because it's just it's a hard mental thing to deal with.
I'm gonna say something that's no, I say this is gonna piss people off. But I mean, it's truth with it is, I can't stand I see this all the time. It's unhealthy for me to be at this condition, this weight. I'm like, no, it's not. For the vast majority of competitors, they aren't lean enough yet, in my opinion and judges' opinion. Okay, judges' opinion. I've had girls win shows.
Yeah, it might be unhealthy for you to be. Sorry, go for it.
I've had girls win shows, and judges say, "Oh, they look good, but it's kind of hard to tell what they need to develop because they're soft."
Yeah,
it's the truth. In a lot of NPC shows, you don't see a lot of conditioning. Okay. So the truth is, you're fine to be at that level. Most people are fine to be at that level of conditioning and hold that level of conditioning for a while, because the longer you hold that level of conditioning, the leaner you're going to get. The leaner you're going to get. So the longer you can keep that in state, that's why I don't like people just doing one shows and be done. Do 2-3 shows, spread them out a month in between there. Because once you get lean, you push yourself to get lean, and the food goes up, and you keep getting leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner into that next show. Then you were actually able to reverse out of it correctly with it.
Yeah. And this isn't to say that like you should hold that level of leanness all the time because it's healthy. I think like a good like thing to piggyback off of that on would be like, yes, people usually aren't lean enough, and what they think is an unhealthy level of leanness is like, yeah, you maybe wouldn't want to hold that year round, but it's something that like through proper and like health conscious protocols and like things like diet breaks and refeeds and monitoring health and stuff like that, like that is part of what can make that level of leanness healthier. And so like, we're not talking about like, oh yeah, it's healthy to be 4% body fat all the time. Like, no, it's not. But once we get there, then what can happen is that we can bring your food up more. We can reverse you into shows. We can get your food up so then you can be a little healthier. Your hormones can come back a little bit better. And then, yes, being lean can fuck with your hormones as well. But once you're there, it's a lot easier, and you can be a lot more productive in your reverse and get everything back online. So I think it's important to think of both sides of it, is like, yeah, you're probably not lean enough, even though you think you're too lean.
Yes,
but that's bodybuilding.
The big thing.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing.
That's bodybuilding. You gotta be lean. Even bikini competitors. Like
a lot of people link post-show depression to that they don't have the goal anymore. To me, it's the fact that they throw everything they've done away. They throw away their patterns. I've had, because I work with a lot of younger females that are first-time competitors with a lot of talent, and this is like where a lot of conversations we have with it, to where it's like, Okay, where do you want to go in this sport? Okay, cool. Then we need to keep your weight somewhere around this mark here. So we're
This is
not trying
what
to
it'll
peel off
take.
35 pounds off of you going into a prep. And then for them, it's hard to say, oh, because they see all these people having fun, right? Like doing these fun meals and doing this. It's not so they feel the pressure to do that. These are the conversations I have with these girls. They feel pressure to do. They don't want to do it,
Yeah.
but they feel like this intense pressure to do that. And a lot of times the post-show depression comes from the fact that, and I mean, a lot of these people, a lot of my clients, they bust their ass to get to a certain place. And then I don't understand what in the head happens with like, I'm just going to throw it all out the window now in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And that,
Right. Because here's the truth. You can do that. In 3 weeks, you can destroy your progress. Destroy it. If you try hard enough, you sure as shit can.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some stuff people eat is just baffling to me, right? And I don't want people to think this is not a normal thing. This is a physiological response. When your ghrelin kicks up, it's telling your body you need to eat food. But the truth is that is a black hole you can never fill. You can't fill it. You can throw food in there. I've had it earlier on in my career. I've had it to where I've ate till I've got sick, went threw up, passed out, got up an hour later and ate another donut, still stick to my stomach.
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
I've been there
It's
too.
an impossible, it's an impossible act. And when you realize that, it's going to happen. And I tell people all the time, like the reverse is going to be harder than the show, than the prep. Mentally it is.
And with hunger, it's like you have to start as a bodybuilder who's going to be, doing shows, going through off seasons, reverse diets. Like, think about what you do about hunger in prep. You ignore it because you have a goal in mind. You ignore the hunger. We talk about hunger hacks are not real. Like there's only so much hacking you can do for your hunger in terms of, avoiding it. So you avoid the hunger as much as possible, but then at a certain point you just accept it. So why can't you do that in your reverse? You can have, just like we want the same habits of like in every way for your reverse, like get up early, get your water in, eat your meals, things like that. Like do that with your mindset in prep and versus your reverse, because if you can just continue what you were doing with hunger and focus on like, well, I know I'm hungry, but I just ate, and just logic your way out of it. Like I just ate. So instead of eating more, I'm going to go do something productive. That's generally what I recommend people do, because it starts to like get them into a better mindset of like eating can be for productivity, but also like you can be productive outside of that. So like eat your food, eat your meals, don't skip meals, don't fast all day so you can have a bunch of food at night. Like eat your meals like it's your job, like it's going to benefit you. Eat the food that benefits you. And then outside of those meals, focus on the things you need to focus on. Focus on your work, focus on your people. Like you can have fun, just like you had fun. Hopefully you had fun during prep outside of things revolving around food. You can do that in your reverse diet too. And you can hold boundaries during your reverse diet, just like you did in your prep. And if people around you don't want to be around you just because you don't want to go out to eat, or you don't want to eat the brownie they cooked for you, then fuck them. I'm sorry. But like you are a human, that you have your own choice. You have your own free will. So why are you letting everybody around you pressure you into doing something that isn't good for you?
Exactly.
This is
you
99 sorry.
Control. No, I'll be sure. I was gonna say you are in complete control of what you eat. And I hear this all the time. Well, so-and-so made me this and I felt like I had to have it. No, that is an excuse you are telling yourself. You don't have to have anything. And if it makes you feel any better, like a little hack is if somebody brings you something and you don't, sometimes you don't want to turn them down, accept it, but say, hey, I just ate, I'm super full, thank you, I'll take it, I'll have it later, and then do what you got to do with it, right? But like nobody is forcing you to eat anything. And if you feel, or you're making that excuse like, oh, I felt like I had to eat that to be nice or polite, like that is, I hate to say it, but that is an excuse. You are telling yourself to justify your actions.
You need to look up what boundaries are if you can't say no to that. And here's competing in a show is something that the vast majority of people can't fathom doing with that. So why are you going to take their like not advice, but outlook on other things when it comes to food.
Yeah, exactly.
You just can't, like, I don't, and someone made a comment earlier about like, oh, we'll come out to dinner, come this, bring you new food, stuff like that. And because they don't understand, like, it's a lifestyle, right? And they don't get it because, like, if they were in your situation, that's what they would do. That's the way they look at it. It comes from a place of caring, but it's like, if I was in a situation I dieted and I pushed myself all that, then I'm going to do this and enjoy it. But the problem is you can enjoy it, but it's
Those are the
like,
same people,
it's
honestly,
a
that like,
tumbleweed going down a hill that just picks up steam though. And if you
yeah,
can have that and
those
enjoy it
people,
and be done, that's fine. But most people can't. It starts a cascading effect.
yeah, most people can't do what bodybuilders do. And that's why they don't do it. That's why they, they do a spin class Sunday morning and then they go off and have bottomless brunch and they think
Yep.
that they earned it with their spin class. But like that, and they
And they
are
did, sure,
applying
they
that
could, but
same
they're not
principle
bodybuilders.
to prep.
Exactly.
And they think like, oh, well, she did this prep. So now she's done. Now she can eat like an asshole.
And some
So
people they do that, but I think you have to also remind yourself that if you want to be a good bodybuilder and you want to not just be average, you're going to have to do unaverage, unique things year round, right? If you want to be average, fine, do what everybody else is doing, do what other people want you to do. But if you want to actually be extraordinary and be different and be amazing and not average, you're going to have to do things that are a little bit different, and you're going to have to be comfortable with that, knowing that that's why you're not like anybody else. That's why you're not just looking like the rest of the general population.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about what to do once you have gained unwanted weight, because it's going to happen no matter what to some people. So most people, especially their first few seasons, what happens, like say you're 3 weeks post show and you've gained 20 pounds as a female, maybe 40, 50 pounds as a male. What
Your
happens?
season's way harder.
Yeah.
Yep.
First off, be honest
Well,
with
what
your
do? You can't diet. We already covered that. We're not going to diet. What do you do instead?
So I think the first thing is be honest with your coach. Don't ghost them, because that does happen when people fall off track and they feel really mortified and ashamed and they're just like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna not check in, and then they just ghost you. I think being honest with your coach first and foremost, and then you guys want to take it from there.
Yeah, and that's why I'm really big on checking in. I'm like, you have to check in each week post show. Like, I don't care, check in, because it's very seldom that you can do enough damage in a week that you can't pull it back. And I have a lot of conversations when I hit send on that video. I'm like, oof, yeah, that was a come to Jesus meeting there with it. And I try very hard to be very caring because I understand. But when it's multiple weeks in a row with stuff, I have to like almost like grab them and shake them, be like, wake the fuck up. You're going to look, and this is a conversation. I go, you're going to look back on this in 2 months and be so mad at yourself for what you're doing right now.
I never
Think about
avoid
that.
those conversations because it's so valuable for someone to know. My coach told me this. My coach like knew this would happen and I fucked it up anyway. Like, as bad as that sounds, like that's sometimes what people need. I was telling someone this the other day. Sometimes people just need to learn the hard way. Sometimes people just need to understand that, like, they need to hear it, decide to do the opposite, and then see what the ramifications are. And
Most people
then
don't learn
that's
unless
when
they
they
learn the hard
learn
way.
and they really change their life.
Most people don't
I
ever
don't
learn a
want it to
lesson
be like
unless it's
that.
the
I
hard
want you
way.
to just listen to my advice and take it. But sometimes that's
yeah.
not how it is.
That's human nature. That's human nature. I mean,
Yeah.
most people don't learn unless there's consequences for their actions. And then when there's
Mhm.
consequences for their actions, hopefully those consequences aren't so dire that in this situation, hopefully you only gained 5 or 6 pounds in a week or 7 pounds in a week. You didn't gain 25 in a week,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Hopefully then it's, if it's, then we, if the weight goes up real high, then we just pretty much sit in a recomp. It depends on the athlete too. If it's a guy, if it's a girl, where their body fat is, where it was, where they conditioned on stage. There's a bunch of different factors that kind of play into it. But you can make an off season really, really, really difficult and far less productive if you go off the rails. Saving it, I mean,
here's how I like to say
Depends
it.
how long you've been in the
Like,
sport. It's
yeah,
hard.
it depends on how long you've been in the sport. How I like
And
to
how
go
much muscle you
about
have.
it, if someone has gained more weight than they'd wanted or than I wanted or both, and they're struggling and they're still coaching with me, obviously they didn't ghost me, and they're like, I don't know what to do. What do we do? My answer is like, we just get back on your plan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we
But the
like,
plan's
you
lower
need
food
to
than you
sit
want it to
down.
be, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
Huh?
But the plan is going
What'd
to
you
be
say?
lower food than you want it to be, which is frustrating
Of
as a
course. And
coach. Yes.
sometimes, you know, what I do in that situation is I give them a little bit of a bump from what the macros or whatever they were trying to hit before. And so I bump it up a little bit more than maybe I want to. But if it just gives them a little bit extra, and I say, like, all right, if you want this, if you want X, we have to do Y. We have to do this. And like, we can try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll do something else. But for right now, we need to try it. You can do anything for a week. You can do anything for 2 weeks, just like we say in prep, right? And so what we do is we get right back on plan. We don't overcompensate with anything. We don't add in more cardio. Most of the time, I'll either reduce cardio or just change it. So we're not doing a ton of cardio that's going to stress you out and cause more inflammation, but we're focusing more on steps or just a different kind of movement. Sometimes I'll say, like, let's add some yoga in. Let's add something that's, you know, gonna be fun for you. I had a client who did struggle a little bit post show this year, and I wouldn't say she gained like an ungodly amount of weight or anything like that. She did gain a little bit more than she had originally wanted to, but now she's in such a better place mentally about it because she took a little bit of time, like probably a couple in total, like 2-3 weeks off of tracking diligently. And then normally I don't recommend that post show, but I knew her well enough and I knew her where her head was at enough, and that she was also like, she was very communicative with me. She wasn't one of those that was just going to ghost me and like stop or give up. So it's like, yeah, let's try this more intuitive style. Just maybe every once in a while, check in with yourself and track the day that you just ate through. So we did that for a few weeks. And then what was cool, what happened was that she got to the place of like, I really want that structure back. And so she got that structure back and she put it back in herself. She's like, hey, coach, guess what? I've been tracking again. I decided that I wanted to. And I've done that for a week now. And I feel so much better, not only physically, but mentally. All she did was go back to the macros that she had before. And then now we're, you know, a month into that or so, and she's feeling really good. She like tightened up even more front, like she lost like 3 or 4 pounds. And like, granted, a lot of that was probably more inflammation and water, but that's 3-4 pounds of inflammation and water. She looks and feels a lot better than she did 3 weeks ago when she had, you know, put on a little bit more weight faster than she would have liked. So that's something that usually I recommend is like, just get back to the plan, get back to the structure that you had in prep that like you felt really good on. Think about like when you're 8 to 10 weeks out, if you've had like a longer prep where you're not stage lean yet, but you feel lean, you feel cool, like lines are showing, you get good pumps still, probably you're not super flat or depleted usually. Think about that time, like why not focus on like trying to maintain that, because that feels really good. That's a healthy level of body fat, and like that's kind of where she's at right now. So I'm really happy for her that she wanted that structure back. And part of the success of someone's reverse is like, you want, try to like see what you need in order to crave that structure. Think about what that structure gives you. That structure gives you good digestion. It gives you healthy hormones. It gives you good mood. It gives you good sleep. It gives you so many things. It gives you a good libido. Like, so many things good can come from just adding the structure back in. And it might be hard mentally to go back to that after fucking off for a few weeks or after being just really loose for a few weeks. But start with a day and see how you feel. And that's why I love having people write biofeedback every day instead of just kind of like looking over the week. Is if you write biofeedback every day, I can look over a check-in and be like, look at the day that you had 100% on your adherence. The next day you wrote about how good you feel. And then look at this day where you missed a few meals. The next day you were bloated as fuck. You wrote that. You said, I'm really bloated. I don't feel good. So cause and effect. Think about like what you want to cause, what effect you want to have, and use that to start just day by day, hour by hour, whatever you need. And then over time, all of that will compound. Just like Lexie was talking about earlier, average people just do things on average, or they do things once in a while. Successful people do things every day that move the needle just a little bit and a little bit.
You have to fall in
So
love.
that's what I recommend, is like the plan, once you gain a bunch of weight, is just get back onto a structured plan. And then once you get enough food and you can actually train really hard again, you're probably going to recomp a little bit. And that's the goal. That's the goal, is like increasing your muscle by training and like training hard. If you have more food in you, you can train harder. We can, have intra-workout carbs, and you're going to feel amazing in the gym. And then if you feel amazing in the gym, you're going to keep craving that. And you're like, wow, I feel amazing today because I had a good pre-workout meal. I didn't have a burger and fries. I didn't drink last night. So I'm going to have a better workout today. I want a good workout tomorrow too. So I'm going to do this all over again tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree that
that's what I recommend.
I would agree with that exact same philosophy, that like if you go overboard, I think everybody's first initial like from a client standpoint, what they first initially want to do is like, oh crap, I went overboard, let me restrict, right? And as a coach, when we tell clients, okay, no, we're not going to do that, we're going to
make you
go back
again.
to the plan. Yeah, go back to the plan. Go back to the macros I've actually been giving you that you haven't been hitting. We're not going to deprive, because here's what I think, like psychologically, what the whole doing whatever the hell you want and then depriving, what that does psychologically is, let's say you have too much fun a couple weeks post show, you've gained a ton of weight, and then you're like, all right, well, now I'm going to get back to it, and then you deprive. Well, guess what you're doing? You're kind of justifying the actions that you did the past several weeks by depriving. You're thinking, okay, well, I'll deprive, so I'm going to quote unquote make up for, all this stuff I shouldn't have done, right? And like that's like that binging restricting cycle. Same concept is that if you screw up one day, or let's say you binge, you go overboard, the worst thing you can do the next day is deprive yourself, because in your brain that's going to allow you to just justify that binge or that overeating episode or whatever happened. You're restricting, and then you're thinking like, okay, fine, you're justifying it. So then it's going to become a repeated pattern that becomes really hard to break. So you sometimes have to wallow in that discomfort of just going back to the original plan, even though it may be more food than you want. It forces you to sit in that uncomfortable state for a little bit of time. And then that's typically going to deter you from making the same mistakes you did in the past, right? Whereas if you just restrict, guess what? You're justifying your actions that you did before, and then it's probably going to happen again. So I think it's important to just sit a little bit in that discomfort of like, all right, well, my coach just wants me to go back to my plan. This food is, it seems, maybe it seems higher than you want to eat, but that's part of sitting in that discomfort, so that your prior actions that were a little unfavorable, that way they don't happen again.
Well, and it's also about taking responsibility for your fuck up. Like that sounds harsh, but like the more you take responsibility for mistakes or failures or anything that you did wrong or did not optimally or whatever we want to call it, the more you take responsibility, the more free you're going to feel. If you take responsibility, like, coach, I fucked up. I ate way too much, or I ghosted you for a couple weeks and I gained all this weight, or whatever happened. If you take responsibility for that, not only to your coach, but to yourself, and you realize like, all right, I know I can't do this. I can't diet again. I can't restrict or whatever, because that's just going to make things worse. I know I messed up and I wasn't the athlete that I wish I could be, but I know what I need to do now because of my mistake. I want to learn from that mistake. And you have to talk to yourself like that and like really take responsibility for your mistakes and for the things that have happened, and move on from there. Because if you don't, you're just kind of kidding yourself, and you're fucking yourself out of a proper off season by just continuing a toxic cycle. Break the cycle, be honest with yourself and the people around you, and do better. Like, do better tomorrow than you did today. That's all we're asking. And that freedom that you'll feel from taking that responsibility, that will empower you to make more good decisions, because you're going to be proud of yourself for making that initial good decision.
Yeah.
The most important thing is getting back on the ball, right? Like when you make those mistakes, no matter how big those mistakes are, accepting kind of where you're at and then not doing it again the next time.
Yeah.
with that.
And focus on what
that
you
was
can
fun.
do. Like, okay,
Yeah.
my coach said I can't diet again. That sucks, but I guess I'll do it. And they try it. But focus on the things that you are able to do. Well, you're able to eat more food. Do you really want to go back to being really hungry? Like, think about that. How hungry do you really want to be? I don't like being hungry. I like eating food. So I like training effectively. I like having good pumps. So like, think about the things you want and the things you need, especially out of an effective off season. If you need to grow, like, you can't diet down because you're not going to grow if you do that. You're cheating yourself out of what could be a more effective growth phase.
Yeah. Amen.
Spot
And
on,
not to mention
kiddos.
also a lot of this stuff that happens, like when people go off the deep end with their post-show eating and post-show weight gain, that can cause a lot of distress on your digestion and your hormones and just like all sorts of inner workings of your body. And so if you don't want to have to like go through a really intensive like health phase or like fix some gut issues that you develop because of something like this, like that happens too to a lot of people, especially bodybuilders. You know, if you don't want to have to do that, try to be more balanced. Just like focus on taking care of yourself. That
Yeah,
should
and
be like at the core of everything you do, is just taking care of your body.
yeah, and not to mention just the whole like losing a lot of weight during prep and then gaining it back really quickly, and all that back and forth is a really big stressor on the
It's
body.
really hard on your body.
Yeah, it's really hard on your body. So just from a health standpoint, I think moral of like one of the big takeaways from this episode is really you should treat the first month or so post show as, you know, being very similar to prep in that regimen. And the longer you build momentum through sticking to your plan and staying consistent, the more, you know, as a coach, we'll be able to get your food up, the more quote unquote like balance you'll feel with your hunger hormones, with your energy, with your strength. So yeah. Anything else you guys want to add onto this topic?
No, just know it's hard and it's tough. And like the reason we bring this up is because like I know I've been through it. I've made those mistakes. I think most people have. So when we bring up, like, especially to clients, like, hey, trust me, this is how you're going to feel after this. This is because it's happened to me. It's happened to most people. And we don't want to see it happen to you. Sometimes it needs to happen, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it needs to, and hopefully it just doesn't get too bad to the point that where, you know, it makes an off season difficult. But also give yourself some grace with this too, and understand that especially this is typically something that happens to newer competitors, and part of competing as a newer competitor is learning. So learn throughout the process, make mistakes, don't go into it blind, don't place blame, and everything will end up being okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm smelling
That's
something
my
being
words of
toasted
wisdom.
right now. Sorry.
Good. Oh, oh goodness. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap things up. Yeah, you guys leave us a review on, I don't really know how to do it, but leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you are watching on YouTube, comments. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode, what you enjoyed about it. We always appreciate the interactions on there.
Share it on Instagram.
Yes, tag us. Love to see that.
To see it.
It's still like, I just love, like, I love the reach that this podcast has had. I still get people all the time, even that aren't part of Pro Physique, like they may be a part of another team, and they just tell me like, I just love the podcast. I love how much I learned from it. And somebody actually yesterday told me that they're like, you know, you guys just seem like great coaches because you teach the clients throughout the process too. So I loved hearing that. So we appreciate the feedback you guys give.
We really do. Like, we don't just say that, we very much do.
We do. Love you guys.
We do.
All right. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Peace out, kids.